Thank you so much for joining me in class today. We have a wonderful lesson planned. It is called Drawing Realistic Environments with One-Point Perspective. Today's class covers 4 main sections. Section 1, One-Point Perspective. Section 2, Idea Sketching. Section 3, Adding Details. And Section 4, Inking. These are the 4 sections we're going to have for our classes. Please watch them at your own speed so you don't have to rush and you don't have to go as slow as the videos do. Just go at whatever pace feels most comfortable to you. To complete this project, you're going to need some supplies. So the first thing you're going to need is some drawing paper. Now, drawing paper can be a lot of different things, but it's essentially any sheet of paper that you feel comfortable doing your final drawing on. You want it to be fairly nice paper. What I like to do is use print paper, or I can use paper out of my drawing notebook. You can also do something I used to do back when I first started drawing, was open up a grocery store bag and use that brown paper because it's so beautiful. The other thing you're going to need is scrap paper. So scrap paper comes in many forms. You can use more of the drawing paper, so that print paper you're using. You can use notebook paper. You can see this one's not very pretty, so I'm going to use it as scrap paper. You can even use an envelope. So I got some mail, I opened it up, and look at all this extra space I have on the front and on the back to just scribble on. So you can use that as scrap paper. The next thing you're going to need is a drawing utensil. Now, I would prefer everyone to have a pencil. It can be mechanical or it can be a regular pencil, and make sure it has an eraser on it. I like to bring my own eraser, so I have one that's separate, a large one. But if you don't have a large eraser, you can use the back of your pencil. The next thing you're going to need is a straight edge. And you might be thinking, what kind of language is that? What is a straight edge? It's anything with a straight surface on it. That can be a ruler. See how the ruler has a straight surface on the side of it? Or it can be a scrap of paper, like I have this scrap of paper right here. It could be the edge of that mail. It could be the side of a box. It could pretty much be anything that has a straight edge, because you're going to be drawing on the side of the straight edge. I have some optional supplies as well. You can use a inking tool. So for me, the way I'm going to use ink is through a pen. This pen has ink in it, and I'm going to use it to do my final inking work. And another optional thing, again, you don't have to use any of this, is to have some sort of coloring utensil. Now, I'm going to be using markers today for my colors, but you can use colored pencil or crayon, whatever you're most comfortable with. And again, you do not have to have an inking device, and you do not have to have a coloring utensil. These are optional, but I want to go ahead and let you know just in case you want to use them today. Another thing we should cover is some vocabulary. Yay! Your favorite thing. So one thing you should definitely look into are horizon lines. So we're going to talk about horizon lines today and what they are. In a nutshell, to delineate where the sky meets the ground, and then to know where this viewer's eye level is. So this is going to be used a lot today, and I will explain it as we go through the art, but I just wanted you to have this definition so that you could keep it in the back of your mind. The next thing you should be thinking about are vanishing points. The vanishing point is a point where receding parallel lines meet when represented in linear perspective. We're going to go over, again, more of this in our drawing process, so you'll get to see it live as we're drawing. The last definition we're going over today is one-point perspective. You may recognize this word from the title in this 4-part series. One-point perspective is a type of drawing created on a 2D plane that uses a single point on the horizon line in which all lines converge. So just remember this definition. If you have time, go ahead and look it up and find some examples. But again, we will be going over it today, and I'll be showing you more in depth what these things are. Before beginning any art project, it's really important to stretch. What we're going to do is put both hands out in front of us. Just put them right out. Extend your arms. Keep them as straight as possible. And just reach. Spread your fingers out. Move them inwards and outwards. Try to hold them as tightly as you can. And then release them and bend them the other direction as much as you can. Then flip your hands over and do the same thing. Also rotate your wrist. You can rotate in one direction and then the other. At the end, I like to shake them out. Now we're ready to go. Take your scrap sheet of paper and lay it down in front of you. You can use a number of utensils to write on this paper. You can use a pencil or a pen or markers. You could even use highlighters. That's absolutely fine. What we're going to do now is a little warm-up. So if you're using markers, choose your lightest color. This is my first lightest, this is my second lightest, and this is my third lightest. And you're going to go in that order. If you're using a pencil or pen, you don't have to worry about this. So choose your lightest color, and we're going to start our warm-up with doing circles. So what you want to do is find an area on your piece of paper and just start drawing circles. You want to keep drawing so that when you're first starting out, you have all these wonky circles, but eventually you get to these beautiful, perfect circles. Don't go very slowly, because what you want to do is develop your hand-mind coordination. You want your hand and your mind to work so seamlessly that when you actually start drawing, your drawings come out looking a lot better. So go ahead and fill this page up with a bunch of circles. Just draw quickly, without thinking too hard. The second you start seeing a series of perfectly round circles, you know you're done. If you keep drawing circles and they keep coming out like ovals or very squiggly, well then you've got a lot more warming up to do. After about a minute or two, I would take a break, because it's not good to have your hand continuously drawing and doing the same motion over and over. It actually can cause you some sort of pain. So I'm just going to keep for a few more seconds doing circles. I really enjoy filling up the page. You can also do this with crayons. Crayon is actually my favorite coloring utensil. So I use that whenever I'm going to make a beautiful piece of colorful art. Starting to see my circles connect a lot better. So I know I'm almost done with my warm-up. But if you're like me, you probably enjoy filling a page. I like seeing all these bubbles. So I'm going to keep making these circles until at least I fill up this page. And it's fine for the circles to overlap on each other, as long as you're able to see what circle is which. Alright, I think I'm done with my circles. If you're using different color markers like I am, go ahead and select your second lightest color. If you're using pencil or pen, then go ahead and either flip your piece of paper over and you can draw on the back side, or use a completely new sheet of paper. I'm going to use the same paper because I'm just going to use a different color over it so I can still see my shapes. The next set of shapes I'm going to draw are triangles. So I'm going to start in one area and quickly try to make a perfect triangle with equal sides. Again, don't take too long doing this. You don't want to sit there doing that, because then you're not improving your hand-mind coordination. So if you can do this with some speed, and with some accuracy, then you know you're improving yourself. And continue making these triangles until you start seeing some perfect triangles. You want to think of the triangle in your mind and then see if your hand will do it. At first, when I started doing these warm-ups, my triangles wouldn't ever meet. It would look more like squares. But now that I've been doing this for a while, my triangles start off a lot better than they used to. Okay, it's getting better and better. Looking for new areas to put my triangles in. Okay, I think I have a full page of some really decent looking triangles. If you're using markers, choose your third darkest color right there. If you're using markers, choose your third darkest color. If you're using markers, choose your darkest color. The next shape we're going to draw are squares. My last marker didn't work very well, so I replaced it with this blue. When you're drawing these squares, try to get a square with even sides all the way across, where all the lines connect. If you're getting rectangles, don't worry. Just keep thinking about a square. Visualize a square on the paper until you're able to draw it. And again, move quickly. This is the only way to really sync your mind with your hand. If you move too slowly, then you won't be able to make that connection. I think this is a beautiful piece of paper just by itself, even though it's just for practice. Once you're done drawing simple shapes, if you want more practice, you can draw hearts and stars and even the letters of the alphabet and numbers. We're going to stop after doing squares. Okay, I think my paper is nearly filled, and my squares are getting much better. All right. This is what my practice sheet looks like. It's time for us to draw our background. On a sheet of scrap paper, what I'd like you to do is to use your imagination and to draw a background. Now this doesn't have to be very detailed. Just in general, draw a horizon line. So the line at which the sky meets the land. And then draw something that's going to go on top of the land. Let me think. You know what? I think I want to draw a house. So I will draw a house on top of the land. And then I think I want to draw, maybe a few flowers. And you know what? I think I want a neighbor's house. So maybe I'll draw the neighbor's house far away. There we go. And if I have a house, I have to have a driveway. So I'll draw a driveway coming out. And the door. Actually, you know what? This will be the walk path. I think if I want a garage on this, I think I want it to be right here. And then here will be the driveway. Nice and curvy. And I would like for the sky to have a sun and some clouds. Okay, so I have an idea of what I'd like. When you look at this picture right now, you might be saying, hey, this isn't perfect. You've got a horizon line going right through your house. You got the horizon line going right through your flowers. This isn't going to look good, and you used one color for everything. Well, don't worry about that. This is just our scratch sketch image. So this is going to give us an idea of the kind of picture we're going to draw. So now that we have this picture is going to be our reference, and we're going to create our final image using this reference. Go ahead and take this picture and place it aside. On another sheet of scratch paper, go ahead and get ready to draw an exercise. What I'm going to show you is how to do one-point perspective. This is going to help drawings like what's on your reference look a lot more realistic. So let's do a few exercises in one-point perspective, and then let's go back and redraw our reference image and make it look more realistic. So you might have seen exercises where people create boxes. Maybe they take a square, and then you see them add lines to it, and it starts to look like a box. Some people even go inside the box and draw more lines. Now, what are they doing? How do they do that? Well, they're using one-point perspective. So what you're going to do is draw your horizon line again, and this is where the sky meets the land. And the next thing you're going to do is create a vanishing point. So I'm going to draw my vanishing point in the center of this line. Now, what we've learned when doing perspective is that if you draw lines from this vanishing point outwards, just radiating outwards, even down here. I'll put an arrow at the side so you remember that this is a vanishing point. I realize all the lines are blue. That when you draw something, like if I were to draw a square, that all the lines for the square are going to go directly back into this vanishing point. So if I drew that square right here, here we go, I'll make it really thick so you can see it. And then I wanted to draw the side of the square, I just have to follow this vanishing point line. So I'm going to draw a line here for my square, and then just follow the lines here. And now I have a 3D looking square. I can go inside the square as well, just like I did in this one. All I have to do is draw more lines coming out like a square, and then connect the lines that would follow from the vanishing point. So you just have to find these lines and make it match the vanishing point. I'll show you again a lot simpler than this. So let's say we want to draw a square. I have a square right here. Let's go ahead and draw a horizon line. So I can draw a horizon line right here. And then we need a vanishing point, so some point in which everything goes back into. Let's draw it right here. Now I'm fairly decent at drawing straight lines, but if you need a little help, you can either use a ruler, and you can use a ruler to make lines from the vanishing point to the edge of whatever square that you've drawn, or you can use a scrap sheet of paper. I pulled this out from the mail. I can use the edge of the scrap sheet of paper, put it at the vanishing point and at the edge of the square, and then just use my pen, pencil, marker, whatever it is, and put it right beside it. And now I have a straight line right to the edge of my square. And I can do it again right here. And I can also connect these lines to the edges here. And then for me to get a square look, all I have to do is start making some straight lines. So this line right here will be where my square cuts off. And then I can draw a square again inside it, since I know I'm making a square. And look, it connects right here to this line that we have for a vanishing line. And now I'm just going to go straight across. And now I have a 3D box. Now in real life, we wouldn't draw the inside of it. We just do those first two lines. So we would just do a box and our lines would go off like this. We wouldn't draw all the inside. If you wanted to know how they drew this with the inside, that's how they did it. Now let's go ahead and use this example right here, which is more realistic. We don't have to do all the extra lines. We're going to do that for our reference image. Can you guess where? Yep, the house. We're going to make sure the house looks more 3D. We can even do this with the flowers. It's a little more tricky on organic images like flowers and trees and grass and dirt, but it can be done. Right now, we'll focus on both houses, my house and my neighbor's house. So what I'm going to do now is practice a little bit. So we'll take this piece of paper and we can flip it over. My marker bled through a little bit, but I can still see. What I'll do is draw a horizon line, a line in which the sky meets the ground, and then I will draw a vanishing point. You know what? I'm going to draw the vanishing point over here. I can draw the vanishing point wherever I want on this page, as long as it's on the horizon line. And I can also draw my square anywhere I want. So I'm going to draw my square down here instead of on the horizon line, like we did before. And I'm going to use whatever I have to make a straight line. It can be your ruler, it can be a scrap sheet of paper. I'm going to line up the vanishing point and the edge of my square. And I'm just going to draw a line right over there. And then I'm going to do the same thing with this point. And now I'm going to do it with this third point right here. Oh, I think I'll turn it this way so I can see better. And now all I have to do is draw a line here, straight down. Make sure it's parallel with the line it's next to. You don't want to do it out to the side or over diagonal that way. Whoops, a little too low. You don't want to do it out to the side here or diagonal over that way. You want to draw a line parallel to the line that it's right beside. And then you want to draw the line that's going at the top parallel again to the line that's at the bottom. So I'm just going to draw a straight line right over. And you see that this top line and this bottom line match. They are both horizontal. There's not some odd angle happening. So now I can use my marker and draw some darker lines, and I've got a beautiful 3D square. Let's say I had my square higher up, like this. And instead of it just being a box, I had a roof on it, like my house. Okay, this is more tricky, but we're going to use the same exact principles. We're going to pick a point, so I pick this point right here at the very bottom, and I'm going to use my straight piece of paper, whether that's scrap paper or a ruler, and I'm going to draw a line from that to the vanishing point. And then I'll go to my next point, which is actually right here. And I will line up my vanishing point, line up that corner, and draw a line. Now I'm going to go to the next point, right here, and do the same exact thing. And up here, you guessed it, same thing. Now this is where it gets a little bit tricky because my next point is this one right here, but I don't want it to go through the house. So what I'm going to do is just have it stop at this corner because it's not realistic to have the back of the house show through on the front of the house. So what I'm going to do is line up my vanishing point and the edge of this part of the roof, but I'm not going to go through the house. I'm just going to stop right when I get to the house. There we go. And now the bottom, this last angle. Let me flip this around so that I can see a little better. Okay, so now I have all my lines going directly into the vanishing point. So now all I have to do is make all the lines parallel. So if I'm going to make a parallel line to this line, it's going to be straight, just like this line. I can either freehand it like I have been doing before, or I can take the edge of the paper that I've been using as a scrap paper, line it up like that, make sure it's not diagonal, and that it's completely parallel, and then draw my line. There we go. From this point right here, I'm going to go straight across, so I can take my straight edge, or the paper that I've been using, and make sure that this and this are parallel. Okay, when they're perfectly parallel and not diagonal, just completely the same kind of line, I take my marker or pencil or pen and I draw another line. Now the same thing happens here, where I want this line right here to be right here. So I line up the straight edge at this point, and I draw it right across. There we go. And now my last one. This is the trickiest one because it's a very narrow angle, is I want to match up this angle with the angle of this paper. And then make sure it touches that point. So get as close as I can. Okay, I think it's perfectly lined up now. I'm going to just draw that. Ta-da! We have a 3D arrow. That's a joke. It's my house and it looks a lot like an arrow. It'll look less like an arrow if I draw a door on it. I'm just making all the lines a lot darker so that you can see it a lot easier. Imagine this now with a door on it and some windows. Now we have a floating house. If you need to take a break, go ahead and practice this more. If you don't need to take a break, continue with the video and we're going to go ahead and redraw our reference image. Stretch your arms out, and this time, try bending your fingers back as far as you can. Don't hurt yourself, so only go to where the limits of your actual fingers are, but give them a good stretch. Now the other direction. So I'll curl my fingers inwards one at a time. I try not to pop my knuckles, but I do curl my fingers inward as much as I can before they pop. I do the same thing with my hand, so I'll flip my hand down. And then pull my wrist the other direction. And then I do that with my other hand. I'll try to stretch the fingers in the opposite direction, not to the point where it hurts. And then bend them inwards, but not to the point of popping them. There we go. This feels so nice and relaxing. It's really important to listen to your body whenever you do this so that you don't hurt yourself. So I'll bend this way. And then I will bend it the other way. And then of course at the end I'll shake it out. Now let's go back to our reference image. I have two houses, one that's closer to where we are and one that's further away. You can see it's further away because it's smaller and it's on the horizon line instead of this house, which is lower than the horizon line. I want to make both these houses look more 3D and more realistic. So what I'm going to do is use the same principles of one-point perspective that we learned and recreate this image. I'm going to go ahead and put this image where it's not too far away from me to see. And I'm going to let me grab my clean sheet of paper. So this is a paper I like to use. It's just from a drawing book. It has these little edges on it because I ripped it out. When you work with these kind of images, you really want them to look nice. And that means the paper has to look nice too. So I go ahead and fold this down. And then I fold it the other direction. This will help loosen up the edge of the paper. Then I rip. And it's so easy to rip since I folded it one way and then another. Okay, so now I have a nice clean piece of paper and there is no edge on it. So I can recycle this. Remember our reference image. I'm going to make this on this, but only I'm going to do it clean. I did this really rough and quickly, but I want to make it nice and beautiful and take my time on this nice piece of paper. So I'm going to put my reference where I can still see. And instead of starting out with marker, I'm going to start out with my pencil. And with my pencil, I have a separate eraser. This is one of my favorite kinds of erasers to use. It's a white plastic eraser. You can use whatever eraser you have that's near you or the one that you got for school. I like using this because whenever I go to erase something, it doesn't leave marks and colored streaks like the colored erasers do. So if you're going to choose an eraser, try to choose a white eraser. That way your paper will stay cleaner. And if you're worried if your eraser isn't a very good quality one, you can test it out before you use it. So you can use your scrap sheet of paper and then just with your pencil, draw really hard in an area. Make it very dark. And then take your eraser and just erase as best you can. So with this eraser, you see the line that I made is nearly completely gone. I can just dust this off. And after I quickly dust it off, I put my finger over it and it's smooth. It feels very clean, like there's no scraps of eraser. Sometimes when I use erasers, it leaves little crumbs on the page. And then when I go to draw again, I have all these little crumbs everywhere. So it's really good to make sure that your eraser doesn't leave crumbs and can erase cleanly without destroying your paper. And this eraser does that. So I'll put my reference aside again, where I can see it. And I'm going to start out, you guessed it, with a horizon line. So you can use your ruler or your scrap sheet of paper, whatever works best for you. And just lightly, very, very, very lightly, do not bear down. You're going to erase this line, so you don't want it to be a very hard line. You want to go ahead and draw a horizon line. And again, very lightly. All right, are you able to see that line? right there. I drew it lightly. Okay. Now, we did this line. Check. The next thing I want to do is decide where I want my houses to go. So I'm going to draw this house first. And you know what? I like the way it looks here, but I think I would like it even better if it were a larger house. So I'm going to very, very lightly begin drawing that home right here on my paper. And I'm drawing lightly because I will erase all of these lines. So I just need to barely be able to see it. Okay, I'm drawing the base of the house. Now I'm going to draw the roof. Well, you know what? I think I want to make this even taller. So I'm going to make the house even taller. You can make all these changes on your second version, but it's good to have your reference to know exactly what your goals were in the first place. So now I'm going to draw my roof off like this. What a nice house. And then I'm going to draw my garage right here. Yeah, I think I want, ooh, fancy house. Yes, I want my garage to be right here. Yes. Okay, so I'm going to move a little closer so that you can see these lines that I drew very, very lightly. This is my main house, this is my upstairs, this is my garage where I'm going to park my car. Now, my neighbor's house. And I did want my neighbor's house to be a little bit on the horizon line, but now I'm thinking maybe not so much. So I'm going to draw a smaller house here, very lightly. And I know this sounds mean, but I want my neighbor's house to be a little bit smaller than mine. So I'm going to give my neighbor a smaller house. They can have an upstairs though. I'll give them a little bit of an upstairs. But it's going to be a different style than my house. Okay. And they get a deck in the back. Here we go. Do you see their house? They have a deck in the back and upstairs, and this is their main house. Okay, so there are two houses in the neighborhood. I'm going to draw the flowers. I'll draw them in a different way. So I'm not going to do like my reference and just draw gigantic flowers here. I have an idea of where I want the flowers placed, but I don't exactly know the size. So what I'm going to do is go to my largest area in the front and think, if I were to have flowers here, how big would they be? Now I like giant sunflowers, and even giant sunflowers don't get that tall. They might be this tall up to the house, like this size, okay? So I'm going to go straight across with my pencil and think if I had flowers, like a flower field, they might be around this size. And I just lightly drew a box where I would have this size flowers. And yes, I think that's where I'm just going to put flowers instead of at the top where I had them here. I think I want them at my house and not at the neighbor's house. So I have my house, my neighbor's house, my flower patch. What do I need next? I need my walk path, so I need to draw a door. Here's where I'm going to draw my door, right here at the side of the house. And my walk path, just going to lightly draw a walk path. And then my garage, which is right here, I'm going to go ahead and draw where the garage opens and draw a line coming out from the garage very lightly. And I say very lightly because again, we're going to erase all of these lines. So it's really important that they're drawn lightly so it'll be easy for you to erase. I have my driveway done. And now I want the sun. Now the sun, I don't want it to be all the way up here because I feel like it's so far away from everything that's happening in this drawing. I'll put the sun right around here. And I'll put the clouds, maybe the clouds can be back here. And what I'm going to do is just draw a loose circular shape, and then I'll get more detailed later. I'll draw another cloud around here. Yeah, around that size. So now you can see I have these curved lines here, very, very faint, barely drawn on there because I am going to add more detail, and I am also going to erase. So now it's time for me to take out either my ruler or my scrap of paper and to begin drawing in 1-point perspective. If you need to take a break, this is a great time to do it. What we need to do now is choose where we're going to have our vanishing point. Technically, you can choose anywhere on the horizon line, but I'm going to choose someplace closer to the images. So I'll put a tiny dot right where I want the vanishing point to be. And what I'm going to do now is take my ruler or my scrap sheet of paper that I'm using to draw straight lines, and I'm going to begin connecting every single point on my image to this vanishing point. Now, I'm not going to take things and bring it through the house over there. But if it is on the side of the house, I'll do that first. And if there's just a little section that needs to go to the vanishing point and it's on the other side of the house, I'll stop right where it needs to stop instead of going all the way through the house, just to keep it more realistic. So what I'll do now is choose one point, choose this one right here. It's the one that is right in my face and is screaming, "Me first! Draw my line first!" So I'm going to line up from the vanishing point to the point that I want to connect, and I'm going to draw a straight line very lightly. That looks too hard. Don't do this. It's too dark. Draw it even lighter than this. And then go to my next one, which I'm going to do this one at the bottom. I like to do the easiest ones first. It makes me feel like I'm being successful early on. Okay, draw very lightly. Very, very lightly. Okay, that was much lighter than the first time I drew a line. You can see here. So I'm going to go now to this point. This one seems easy enough. Okay. Now do this one. And you see it is covering up the neighbor's house, but don't worry. We're not going to fully cover up the neighbor's house. So go right here. Oh, hard to see from that angle. I'm going to put it on the top instead. If ever your straight edge, your scrap sheet of paper, or your ruler gets in your way, just move it to the other side. Okay, there we go. Now the other point in the roof. Got this one here. And this top one. Okay, we've got everything on this side of the house complete. Everything on this right side. Now we need to decide how thick is this house going to be. So I want to stop the house maybe right around here. Yes. I think that's thick enough. It will cover up the neighbor's porch, but I think this is a good size house, especially for me and my big family. So what I'm going to do now is create a straight line. And I notice that these lines that I drew aren't perfect, so I'm going to just make sure it's very straight as I do this drawing. So there we go, a straight line. And now I'm going to create a second straight line for how thick I want this house to be. Okay, so this line and this line. Okay. And what I'm going to do so that I don't get lost in the image is just erase the section of the image that isn't going to be seen anymore now that I've drawn this line. So I'm going to erase as I go, and this is going to make it a lot easier for me to see. Okay. Just drawing that a little bit darker. Now I have a point of reference for the rest of my lines. I drew a straight line here, which means I can go from this point straight down as long as I make sure the line is parallel. So I'm going to go to this point and make sure this is parallel right here, these two. Great, I think that's perfect. So now I will draw that line. There we go. And I'll even straighten up this line a little bit. There we go. This line needs a little bit more straightening. Let me make sure it goes straight up. And now I'm going to use this as a point of reference to go straight down, except the only thing is this roof right here, let me make sure it focuses, this roof goes outwards. So that means this goes outwards. So this has to go inwards and then down. So it can't go the exact amount of space. What I can do is go from this point all the way to the vanishing line and figure out exactly where the mark is. But because it's such a small amount of space, I'm just going to use this as a reference of how far over to go. So this goes a little bit that way. So I'm going to go the same distance here and use this as my marker and just go straight down from there. So let me go ahead and make sure this line is parallel and go straight down. There we go. Okay, so now we've got this part of, this part of the roof. Almost have it completely done. I have this line here. I need this line to be parallel with this line. It's a really short distance. Look how tiny that is. I'm just going to eyeball it and try to make it parallel. There we go. Looks the same. And now I need to go from this point all the way across here. Let me do that. Make sure it's completely parallel. Okay, and I can straighten this line up just a little bit. Okay, now it's getting a little tricky to see in this area, so I'm going to erase the lines that I don't need for this image. I don't redraw anything that got erased. And now the lines that I drew from these points to the horizon line need to be erased as well. That way I can draw the neighbor's house without these lines getting in the way. Let me go ahead and erase these lines. I do not need these extra lines. Make sure not to erase your horizon line. So very carefully take your time and erase the lines that you no longer need. If you end up erasing something that's important, just draw it back. I erased a little bit of the neighbor's house at the bottom, so I'll just draw that back. And then I'm going to erase these lines here. Okay, and I'll draw that back. And this is the neighbor's house right here. And I will erase the horizon line that's inside of the house. There we go. That looks a million times better. See that? We have this part of the house done. And we have the neighbor's house cleaned up behind. Still have this horizon line. Make it a little darker so you can see it. Oh, but look! We need to erase this line of the house. This is just the edge of the house that I drew. There we go. There we go. Beautiful home. Ooh, you know what? I want to add more things to the house, but I should wait till the end. Now we have this other side of the house. Now, as you can see, this is going to be a very thin line going to the horizon line, but we still need to draw it. So let's go ahead and take our ruler or our scrap sheet of paper and line up our far point with the vanishing point. And you see it's just a tiniest little sliver that still needs to be drawn. And I'm not going to draw it through the house. I'm just going to connect the line right here. There we go. I just drew this little line, which goes all the way to the vanishing point, so that the house looks realistic. I've got to do the same thing here. Go ahead for this point and line it up with the vanishing point. And oh, look! It goes through the house completely, so it won't even show. So I don't have to do that point. Great, that's some less work to do. Now to work on the neighbor's house. I'm going to do the same thing and line up each point. I'll take this point and line it up with the vanishing point. There we go. Drew a line there. And I'm going to do it with the side of the roof. And now with this inside part under the roof. And then with their upstairs area, which is right here. This is where the upstairs area begins, and this is the top of it. Just line that up. Okay, and then the top of it. The more you do this, the faster you'll get at it. And now the edge of the roof. And now the top of the roof. And I'm not going to go all the way through the house, but I do need to get this edge right here. There we go. And now I need to determine the thickness of this house. This house in the front is really thick. I'll make it even thinner when I go back here. So I'll make it like this thin. There we go. You can see how thin I'm making it compared to this one. That'll really show that this is in the front and closer to us, and this is further away. So I'll make it just a bit thinner. What I'm going to do to make sure I get straight lines is either use my scrap sheet of paper or my ruler and make sure the lines are really straight. Now that I have this first line drawn, you guessed it, I need to make sure all the lines are parallel all the way up the side of the house, and then erase the lines that I'm not using. So now that I have this line and I know how thick the house is, this line no longer is needed. So I can go ahead and erase it. And I will continue to draw and erase just like we did for the first house. Go ahead and make sure the lines are parallel. Okay, so now I'm going to erase all the lines I don't need. Redraw anything that got erased a little too much. Okay, beautiful. Look at that. I've got my house and my neighbor's house. Now let's think about those flowers. Okay, so the flowers, if I'm going to draw a sunflower, a very tall sunflower, I think I want the field to be this long, as I have drawn very lightly on this sheet of paper, about this long and wide. And I want it to go about this far back, only on my property line. So just draw kind of a line of how far back. And I'm going to do a very similar thing that I did with the house. I'm going to take one point right here and connect it to the vanishing point. And I can do the same thing at the bottom and at the top. So I'm going to connect this line all the way back. Okay, so now I'm going to erase the lines I don't need. And I've got the overall shape of where the flowers are going to go. Now you might be saying, this doesn't look like flowers. Of course it doesn't look like flowers. This just tells me what area the flowers are going to be in. What I can do is try to get the flowers really lightly drawn, now that we've got all our 1 point perspective done. And in fact, if you need a break after this, go ahead and take a break. We just finished a big thing. For this stretch, we're going to stick our hands all the way out and then do claw fingers, which is try your best to resist curling your fingers in while still curling your fingers in. It's almost that I'm so angry holding your fists together, but you do it very slowly and very controlled. And then you relax and let your fingers go limp and stretch them out. And then you do it again, claw fingers, fingers coming in slowly, tightly. Those claws. And then you let the fingers relax. Okay, whew, that feels good. Let's shake it out. Now that we're done with our perspective, it's time to add some details. So we'll go back to those flowers and think, okay, so I want my flowers to be fairly tall, beautiful sunflowers. So I'm going to go ahead and draw the little core of the flower and then begin drawing the petals very lightly. Okay, this is kind of sunflowery. I'll draw more of the tops of the flowers. And I like to do the bottoms of the flowers last. And I'll also add the points to the petals last as well. For right now, I'm just going to, in general, draw some flowers. Are you able to see that? Just the tops of the flower heads. And now that I'm done with the tops of flower heads, I'll go ahead and draw those curvy stems with some of the leaves on it. Now the flowers, as they go back, what I can do to get the flowers to look like they're going further and further in the distance is just measure the exact size the flower is going to be as it goes back. So I'll take my ruler or my piece of paper, and I will take the end of this flower. So let me show you a little closer. We have from, whoops, right here, from here to here is the width of the flower. I have this side touching this end for the width, and if I drew a line down here, I could see that this is where this other wide part of the flower ends. So I want this point to intersect with the vanishing point. So I'm going to take my ruler or my sheet of scrap paper, whatever has a straight edge on it, and I can draw a straight line straight to the flower. See, now I have this line here going straight to the vanishing point, and you can see that it's wider at this point and smaller at this point. So I know exactly how small the flower is going to be when it's in the bag. I want maybe 3 rows of sunflowers. So this row right here, this is where the top is. This row here is the back. Where should I put the row in the middle? Now you can put it directly in the middle, but that wouldn't be as accurate. You can put it a little further back, and that's going to be more accurate. We can go into later how to figure out exactly how far back it'll be. But for right now, this simple exercise, let's just go ahead and guess that it'll be somewhere a little further than halfway. So right about there. Row 1, row 2, row 3. And I will do the same thing with the other flowers, going straight back into the vanishing point. I get my edge of where this flower ends. And the same thing for this next flower. Okay, so now they're all done. I have this beautiful grid showing me exactly where each flower should go. So now I'm going to first erase the lines I don't need. I go all the way back here. And then begin drawing my flowers. So I'll draw a little flower here with some petals. Another one. And then I'll do this last row. As you can see, the flowers get smaller and smaller as they move closer to the bag. And they move in the same direction as the vanishing point. Now, I would need to go in and erase all the lines from the grid and make sure that I only see flowers and not grid. This is a little tricky because the flowers are so close together, but I'll do the best I can. Okay, I feel like I've erased all of the grid. Whoops, a little part right here. And then I'll just draw back the part of the flower that got erased. Okay, I think that's the majority of it. I can still see where the flowers are without the grid. So now what we need to do is add more detail to our image. we have this beautiful straight horizon line going in the back. And there are some places on Earth that have a very straight horizon line. Unfortunately, I'm not too familiar with those places, so it doesn't look as natural to me to see a perfectly straight line. So what I'm going to do, since I'm done using the Vanishing Point, what I'm going to do is erase this whole line and create my own horizon. So I'm going to go in here and just lightly erase. And I say lightly erase because I still want a little bit of it showing so that I can still see where it was before. Because I don't want to stray away too far from what it was. Now I'm going to go on with my pencil and draw beautiful hills. I might draw a little overlapping hill happening here. There we go. See the 3 hills in the corner? And then just a small one here. That looks even more natural. Okay, what I can do is add details to my clouds now. Okay, my clouds are done. I can erase the lines that I don't need. And when I drew a simple shape in there, okay. And this is what I'm left with. Now I can go in and add even more detail. And the more detail I add, the more realistic this picture is going to look. If I were to add little shingles on the roof, like instead of having this flat roof, if I went in and drew little curves all the way in there, then that would look more realistic. But in order for me to know how the row should line up, I need to use my vanishing point, and I can still see it right here, which is why I only barely erased it before. So if I do want to go back and add little shingles on the roof, all I need to do is evenly space out where the shingles are going to be. And I'll give you an example. So I have this roof right here. I can split it in half right here. So the half between this and this is right about here. And if you're not sure, use your ruler. That'll help you know what the center is. I'm just going to use my eyeballs because I think I can give it a pretty good guess. So right around here. And let's say I want, oh, that is 4 sections. What if I want 8 sections? Let me divide it even more. There you go, you see those dots? So now I just need to connect all of them to the vanishing point. Now I'm going to, well, I've been using my scrap paper, but I can use my ruler as well. And instead of going all the way drawing it, I'm just going to stop it right where I want it to stop, which is right here. Actually, I think I got a little crooked with that line. Let me go back to using my scrap paper. I don't know why, but I like scrap paper better. Okay, perfect. Oh, let me get the one at the top. Oops, there we go. And now I'll do that with every single line here. As you can see, we use this vanishing point very often. If you were to make an entire city or a village Even if you were to make a bunch of trees in a forest, it's good for you to understand how to draw it all in perspective. Because if you were to do the trees, it'd be very similar to the flowers, where you put everything in its place. But instead of using rows, you would space things out a little bit more sporadically. So now I have the top of the roof. Now these lines are kind of dark. I don't want it to be that heavy. I'm going to erase a little bit on the top. And that's going to help me know exactly where to put the shingles on the roof. Whew. Okay, so you see that? These lines here, I can still see even though it's just barely on there. What I'm going to do now is add lines going the other direction so that I know exactly where the curves go. Okay, so here we go. Here's a line here. And then I will add 2 more here. 1, 2, and then 2 more on this side. 1, 2, okay. So now I have all my lines for the roof. It's a grid. And I just need to make the little swoopy shapes, like the waves of an ocean. So I will make a curve. 1 curve here, 2 curves there, 3 curves, 4 curves, 5, 6. Do you see that? Isn't it beautiful? It looks just like the shingles on a roof. And now I'm going to do it again for the next row. Another whoosh, 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 whoosh. And I'll just keep going down on each row. Drew a little bit too much right there. Okay. So now we have this beautiful roof. It looks way more realistic. So what you're going to do now is continue adding your details all around your image. If you have little pieces of grass, or if you have more flowers, or if you have trees or anything like that, even if you have birds in the sky, it's good for you to use your vanishing point to decide where everything is. I'm going to continue drawing, and I ask that you continue drawing as well, and then we'll see what our images look like at the end. Okay, I'm done with my picture. Do you see all the fine details that are in it? I added a little cover above the door and a little light so that when you walk up to the door, the light turns on. And a little shelf under the windows so you can put your plants on or just put your hands on when you open it. I do have the little shingles on some of the roofs, and my flowers are done, my clouds are done, my hills are done. What I can do now is just go in with my either my pencil a lot darker and make these lines more permanent, or I can go in with a pen and really make these lines stand out. It's up to you, whatever you choose. If you choose not to use a pencil or a pen, this is a good time to go in with marker or with crayon. This next stretch is the opposite of claw fingers. This time, you're going to put your hands out as far as you can, and then pull your fingers upwards. So before we brought them in, now we're going to bring them as far up as we can. So you see my fingers don't go up that far, but some people can really go far back with their fingers. I'm going to pull my fingers back as far as I can, and then let them relax. Oh, it feels good. Okay, so now I'm going to put my hands out and then bring my fingers up as far as I can, holding it tightly, oh, so tight. And then let them relax. Okay, yeah, that feels really good. Let's do it one more time. We'll bring our fingers up as high as we can, hold it for as long as you can. Okay, now we'll let our fingers relax again. Okay, perfect. Just shake it out. I choose to go over my artwork with a pen. So all I'm going to do is erase some of the lines I know I really don't want to be there, like this beautiful vanishing point. And I'll clean up the clouds a little bit more. Is there anything else? Oh, this mark right here. In fact, this needs a little bit of pencil right here. Just clean up everything before I start using my pen. Okay, I feel like I've got it. Now, when I go in with my pen, I do not have to follow these lines exactly. Think of these lines in pencil as guidelines. They will help you understand the idea of what you want to create, but you don't have to use this exactly. For example, these lines back here for the hills. What if I wanted to make them really grassy? I could use these lines as guides and put little spikes in the same shape as the hills. Or with these flowers right here, I could go around and follow every single petal the same way, or I could go in between it and add little flowers in between as well, or even add more flowers now that I know the sizes of the flowers. For the windows, I could add details, or if I wanted bricks on the house, I could even add more fluff to the clouds. So don't feel like you are forced to follow every line exactly on this image. You can just use it as a guide to help you create the image that you really want. So I'm going to start by doing some of the easy parts. I like to go in on the lines that I know I want to keep. So I'm going to go in on the roof here and just start with some of these little shingles. There we go. And then I'll do the next row. Now, pen is very unforgiving. If you make a mistake in pen, you just got a big mistake. There are ways for you to go in with whiteout if you have that, and with whiteout tape. You can even take it into the computer and edit it. Outside of that, it's really difficult to remove a mistaken pen. So if you're unsure of yourself, feel free to keep using pencil. Whenever you're drawing and you're using a pen and it's got more of a runny ink like this one, the ink tends to spread. It's really important that I don't put my hand over what I just drew. If you do have to overlap your hand over your drawing, what you can do is just take a sheet of scrap paper and put it over the section you need to put your hand. And then you can draw on a clean section without smudging any of the ink or pencil. I'm done with all of my pen work. I've got my image looking the way I want it to look, but I still have some pencil marks in here. You might be tempted to take your eraser and then just erase as fast and as vigorously as you can, but if you do that, you might actually smear the ink. So it's really important to let your image just sit for a second and to fully dry before you do any kind of erasing work. Right, so I'm going to let this dry for a little bit and then I'll come right back. It's been a few minutes, so now I'm going to go in with my eraser and erase some of this pencil in here so that I can have a nice crisp image that just has the pen. So before I go in and start erasing, what I did was let it dry for a little bit. So I made sure my ink wasn't going to smudge because it wasn't wet. Now I need to make sure it's really ready to be erased, and I'm going to test a little bit of this image. Maybe a section that won't look so intense if it does get messed up. So I'm going to erase right here at the edge. And I see a little bit of smudging happening. Oh no, it's not dry enough. What I'm going to try to do is erase into the image. So instead of going back and forth, I'm actually going to follow the lines of the image so that I can erase a little easier, because this could take a really long time to dry. Okay, so this is working and it's not smudging it. Do you see the difference? When I just erased left and right, this is what I got, a little bit of the ink smudging. But when I decided to follow the lines of the image, you see none of the ink smeared. I'm going to do that for the rest of the image. Just going to erase the sun in a circular motion. And then erase the hills, following the lines of the hills. Flowers are a little tricky, but I'm going to try to just erase into the flowers. So I'm going to pick up and just keep pushing inwards. Okay. And the house. Just light dabs. Okay, I do see one part that needs a bit of pen, which is right here. There we go. Oh, you know, I'm going to add some berries right here. And on this one. And some dots here. Okay, so now I have this beautiful image, and I can leave it just like this. I can shade it, which is adding lines that would add more depth to it, so it would make it look kind of like it's colored, but it's black and white. Or I can go in and paint it, but I choose to leave it just like this. I like it as a line drawing. And you can use one-point perspective to make your line drawings as well. Hello! I wanted to say thank you so much for coming to this class and for staying focused and committed. If you need any assistance, please contact me at alisaalewis@gmail.com. I hope you have an amazing week, and I will see you next time. Bye!